Now that you have the makings of a fantastic show, I want you to know that perfection is not what we're shooting for. What we want to do is keep moving forward. If you try for perfection right out the gate, you will only be super critical of yourself, especially if you're like me, with a type A personality. What you want to do is strive for greatness every day. So as long as I'm a little better than I was the last episode, then I'm great. And I still listen to the shows as they air, and I take away things and I think maybe I should have dug deeper here, and I take that information and I go back the next week or the next time I interview and I make sure it's better. So as long as you're progressively moving forward, then you are winning and you are a success. I want you to keep that in mind on your journey here, because it's really easy to get distracted and to go back to my other favorite quote is the comparison is a thief of joy. So it's really easy to get caught up in comparing yourself to others and wondering why you aren't on the top 10 yet. But no successes that we see are truly overnight. I want you to remember that as we move forward. And I also want you to remember that as you are building and as you are launching this podcast, that you're stretching yourself. You're getting uncomfortable. You're introducing your own intellectual property out there to the masses, and that can be scary. You're not alone. I want you to know that I felt exactly what you felt, but with each interview, with each show air date, you will become more confident. You can literally go back and listen to some of our first episodes and see how much we've evolved, how much I've grown, and how much our interview style has changed over the years. And I'm 150 episodes in. I wouldn't dare compare where we are now to where I was in episode 1. So just keep that in mind. I also want you to give yourself a little grace. Set goals for yourself, of course, but set room and set movable goals. That can-do attitude that you have, the one that's helping you power through and do your pod work and listen to all of this and watch these videos, is exactly what's going to help you have a successful binge-worthy podcast. I want to be totally transparent with you and share a story about when I first launched Brunch and Slay, the podcast. When I first began, I honestly started booking guests before I even knew how to record or what an RSS feed is. I can say that now publicly because we've come a long way, and I think people will respect it and honor it. I knew that I had to come up with a way to connect with our audience. As I said before, we started out as an event series. And to be honest with you, when I first began the company, I had no clue that I would evolve and the brand would evolve to where it is today. I knew that there was a need. I knew that there was a lack in the community of women. I knew that there was a lack of representation in diversity, which was super important to me. But I knew that I wasn't a natural writer. And when I tried to blog and I tried to write on a consistent basis, it missed something because it felt forced. It didn't feel original to me. And I knew that wasn't my strong suit, but I did love podcasts. I love listening to them, and I've always been a natural talker. So it just seemed like something that I should give a try. After a little encouragement from my husband, of course, my number one cheerleader, I was able to go ahead and figure out, okay, I think I want a podcast. I was fortunate enough to attend an event where Ty Hunter, Beyonce's former stylist, was in attendance. And he was just such a great spirit and so charismatic. And everything he talked about during the brunch that I was at with him just spoke to my spirit. And he continued to say, take risk. Ask, you never know. And he told the story of how he met Tina Knowles, Beyonce's mother, when he worked at a clothing boutique in Houston where I lived at the time, and how he just took a chance and told her he wanted to work with them. And at this time, this was in the Destiny's Child days when no one even knew who Destiny's Child or the mega star that Beyonce would be, but he saw something and he went for it. So a little bird or a little something inside of me kept saying, ask him, ask him, ask him. And then this side of my brain was like, you ask him for what? You have no platform. You have no following. I mean, you have a very small following. What are you doing? And I did it. I asked him, and I was shaking and I was sweating. And you know what he said? I'll do whatever you need. I share that story because I want you to be encouraged, and I want you to go for the gusto, and I want you to be a person who takes leaps. And let me tell you, not everyone will say yes, but you'll be surprised at how many will. Keep in mind that brands and celebrities and the folks who you admire, they want to talk about their platform. They want to get the word out to the masses. And I was able to book Ty and a number of other guests without having one episode aired. Not one. And as a matter of fact, when I first started the Brunch and Slay podcast, I refused to check the numbers for almost a year for fear that no one was listening but me and my husband. So when I finally checked the numbers, I was pleasantly surprised that people were listening and they liked what they heard, and my mind was blown. Be encouraged, be steadfast, and be committed, and step out on faith and take the leap, because you never know who your tie hunter will be. So let's dive in and talk about equipment. Now, as with anything in life, there are levels to this. I like to think of equipment as good, better, best. And I'm going to encourage you not to go out and spend a ton of money on equipment right at the start. And the reason I say that is because it can be overwhelming, and you and your business might not be able to afford it. And once you start podcasting, you might, for some unearthly reason, realize that it is not your jam. You might truly just want to do vlogging or blogging, and podcasting might not be your area. So I want you to start off with something that's moderate. Now, all the equipment I'm going to recommend here is great equipment. The differences are in some cases, very hard to point out as far as sound and quality. However, as you progress, you might want something that's a little bit more advanced. So I'm going to recommend the good version, because that's where I started, and I did it for well over a year before I invested in more equipment. So as you think about your podcast, there's one thing that is more important than anything, and I'm going to say that's the sound. I'm going to recommend that you invest in a microphone. There are good, better, and best microphones. As a matter of fact, this is my first microphone and the only microphone that I've used in starting the Brunch and Slay podcast. So I wanted to share it because I wanted you to see it. It's inexpensive, and I actually brought it used on Amazon. It retails for a little over $100. I paid about $70 for it, and at the time I purchased 2 of them because I thought I would do face-to-face podcasts initially. And that, just as I began to become a podcaster, I realized that would be more time consuming, and it was much easier for me to do it virtually. But this is a Blue Yeti microphone, and this is something that is relatively inexpensive. You can find it online, you can find it on Amazon, and the sound quality is amazing. And there are levels to the Blue Yeti. They have the Snowball, they have this version, and then they have studio versions. So as you progress, this brand is the bee's knees of podcasting. So do your research, find out what you like, look at your budget, look at your time, look at the background aspects of it. Do you have an in-home studio? Do you have a roomy closet you can record in? Are you doing this in an open, echoey place? All those things make a difference. Blue Yeti does a great job of breaking down the best resources and why you should have each microphone and at what level and what kind of sound quality each microphone will guarantee you. As you're diving deep and you're almost to the finish line and you're ready to invest in equipment, I want you to consider a few things. Number one, I want you to consider your budget. I do not want you to break the bank on all of your equipment. As I said before, I brought this mic used, and it has lasted for almost 3 years with no issues. So there's nothing wrong with secondhand, Craigslist, OfferUp, 5 Mile. Those are some great places as well to find equipment, because there are a ton of one-hit wonder podcasts out there that are looking to get rid of equipment, I can assure you. The next thing I want you to consider is connectivity. I want you to have something that's easy to transport, that's user-friendly. That's very important. Do not go out and buy something as if you're about to create a platinum record, because that will only confuse you and only stress you out. You want something that's plug and play. This mic, for example, is a USB mic. It's really easy to plug and play into this particular notebook. I use a Mac. I am an Apple user. That is what I know, and that's what I'm comfortable with. So consider your equipment. Make sure that whatever microphone you choose is easily adaptable to whatever equipment you already own. It will make a world of difference. The last thing you want to do when starting a new project is to have to continuously learn every level. The goal here is to give you all the tools and resources you need so that you can easily adapt it to what you're comfortable with, so that no roadblocks or no areas of misunderstanding will hinder you from creating your wonderful podcast. So condenser mics are user-friendly in most cases, and they are sensitive enough to pick up even the smallest sounds. Depending on what type of space you are living in, you will know whether or not a condenser mic will work for you. Condenser mics are perfect for quiet environments, but they don't do so well in noisy places. So in my situation where I have a rambunctious small child, a condenser mic isn't always the best, but typically if she's not home and I'm able to have a quiet area, it can work just fine. And in some instances, you want to consider, will you be having and conducting live podcasts in environments or in events? In that case, you wouldn't want to use a condenser mic because all of the background noise, conventions, and things like that where people are having separate conversations will totally distract your listener. So make sure that if you have a condenser, it's typically for an in-house or in-studio type of environment. Condensers are also great for recording with multiple guests. If you're doing a round table or virtual interview like myself, then they are perfect. The next version of mics are dynamic. They are perfect for in-person, live podcasting, noisy environments. They can drown out all the background noise. Dynamic mics are typically used in studio, so a lot of celebrities, when you see them on TV and they're in the studio and they're jamming out, they're on dynamic microphones. So you want to make sure that you have that if you are going to focus on live podcasting. So no matter which mic you choose, be it dynamic or condenser, do your homework. Read the reviews, and most certainly don't buy from shady sites. Of course, if you're going to go use, I definitely recommend Amazon because we know they're going to indemnify whatever they sell, and they're going to make sure that you are reimbursed should anything happen. And because podcasting is the new black, there are a ton of options out there, but not all advertisements are created equal. So use discernment. Now that covers the good portion, but when we're talking about the better or the best, a ton of podcasters use the Hill PR40. It is small, it is compact, and it is dynamic. So no matter where you go, it covers all the bases. Now, I am not a sound engineer, nor am I a sound expert. So in my opinion, I can't hear the difference between my Blue Yeti and Hill, but true sound engineers, which I know a ton of now that I'm in the podcasting world, swear by the Hill. So if you want the better option, then I would certainly upgrade to the Hill. It is a little bit more pricey and it is an investment. So be sure to ask questions and make sure that that's going to be the best fit for you. So here's your chance to take a break and do a little research. I want you to look up the Blue Yeti. I want you to look up the Hill, and I want you to look at all the resources we provide in this video so that you can compare microphones and use the best option that works for you. Now remember, you want to focus on condenser versus dynamic, and you want to take baby steps. I'll see you in the next video.